the U.S. has a long and sordid history of sterilizing women without their consent, and this is, in particular, has been aimed at African American women, Latinas, Native women. But there is also a sordid history of forcing pregnancies, and that goes back to slavery times, when the slave trade was outlawed in 1808. Suddenly, enslaved women's reproductive capacity became the main way that slavery could reproduce itself and the main source of wealth for enslavers. So that led to an enormous amount of reproductive coercion. Well, what happened in the 1950s and 60s is that as black people started to demand their rights, and a lot of people came back from World War II having fought for democracy abroad and expected a little democracy at home, the big landowners, in particular in Mississippi and Alabama, were very concerned about the black population getting voting rights because if they got full equal voting rights, they would be able to vote out the white people that had been running the show. So they very quickly mechanized the cotton production system in order to make black people redundant, and that is when they came in with forced sterilization in Mississippi. It was so common, it was called the Mississippi appendectomy. These were forced sterilizations. Women did not even know that they had happened until they found out they couldn't get pregnant. One of the heroes of the Mississippi Freedom Democratic Party, Fannie Lou Hamer, was forcibly sterilized in a hospital in Mississippi when she went in for a benign tumor that she got removed. And she estimated that 30 to 40% of black women who went into that hospital had been sterilized. They even tried to pass a law to sterilize people who had children out of wedlock. You could either, according to the law, be jailed or be sterilized. So this is the kind of population control that we've experienced in the United States. Now, those times are way behind us. Right now, Mississippi has one abortion clinic. It has a lot of restrictions on abortions. It's very difficult for women in Mississippi, black and white, to get abortions. So what we're seeing is a switch over by the ruling class and the establishment. The establishment in the 60s and 70s was very panicked about overpopulation, both in the United States and abroad. Now, what this boiled down to was that they were worried about political organizing among poor people and labor organizing. And so when they saw that abroad, they thought, oh, well, what we can do, the way to solve this is to decrease the population of these people. And so they sent a lot of population control abroad through international agencies, including the International Planned Parenthood Federation. And so we have this history of doing that, but I think, and this was at a time when the women's liberation movement first arose, and so the idea that the ruling class might want more children is sort of a new one to us because we still remember all of these awful cases of forced sterilization, which was used against poor white women as well who were on welfare, but primarily aimed at African Americans, Latinas, and Native women, and Puerto Ricans, where the entire country of Puerto Rico was used as an experiment on various birth control options when they hadn't been tested, and many of them were quite harmful. So we have this history, but the panic among the ruling class around overpopulation really subsided in the mid-70s as the birth rate declined in a lot of places. And now we're seeing some panic rather in the other direction about the US's record low birth rate. So this explains maybe a little bit of the turnabout and why we have been seeing more intense politics around birth control and abortion and not as much forced sterilization, although it does occasionally still happen, particularly in prisons. And so it still bears watching, but it is the major reproductive coercion that we are all experiencing, and including African American women, is that we can't get the abortion and birth control that we need.